I really need to organise my pattern storage. It's chaos in there. Hello gentle viewers and welcome to my channel. My name is Edith and I like to show and tell my craft stuff to strangers on the internet, so thank you for being here. In this video I'm making a set of summer pyjamas. I've mixed and matched two different patterns that are both for beginners, one of them being a confident beginner, but they should be fairly simple in terms of making. And I am once again sewing with seersucker, which has become one of my favourite fabrics to wear in hot weather, but also just one of my favourite fabrics to make things out of. I think I just want more seersucker clothes. Quick disclaimer, I am not an expert, very much on my learning journey, and so this is not a tutorial in any way, shape or form. With that said, let's take a look at the materials and the patterns that I will be using to make these pyjamas. I'm going to be using this lovely 100% cotton seersucker fabric. Seersucker is the perfect fabric for hot weather because the structure of the weave, which I've spoken about in a previous video, means that it is held off the body when you wear it, and that increases airflow and allows your body to cool down. Cotton is also a brilliant composition for that kind of thing because it's breathable, which means that your body heat can actually escape from the clothes. In contrast with synthetic fabrics, which are non-porous and plasticky, you can't really get heat through them as easily. I only realised once this fabric arrived that I'd ordered the idiomatic stereotypical pyjama print. Like you might wear pyjamas in this print if you were a banana, for example. I didn't mean to do that, but I'm really not unhappy about that accident. For this pyjama set, I'm using two different patterns from different companies. They're not sold as a pyjama set. The first one that I'm using for the shorts is the Matchy Sewing Company Bow Boxer Shorts, and I'm going to make the low-rise ones just because I've been preferring stuff that sits on my hips lately. I don't know if these are going to be low enough rise that they will sit on my hips, but I've just been really sensitive to stuff squishing my belly. And I'm using the 3-inch inseam. This pattern is rated for beginners, early beginners, and I cut out the pattern pieces this morning. It does look really beginner friendly actually, so I'm looking forward to that. The second pattern that I'm using is the Fabric Godmother Fleur dress and blouse pattern, and I'm going to be making the sleeveless blouse. This pattern is rated for advanced beginners because there is bias binding at the neck and at the arm holes. I did buy both of these patterns as a PDF, but I had the company Patternsy print them for me. Patternsy is one of the companies in the UK that does this A0 printing. I have not been paid to say any of this, but I just love this company so much. I will actually show you the size of one of the sheets that came as well. They can print huge. It's awesome. In terms of notions, all of the fastenings are ties. I don't have to do buttonholes or buttons. And I do believe the waist of the shorts is elastic. I cut these pieces out this morning for the short. The only bit I still need to cut out is the ties that go on the side of the shorts. Both of the garments have ties on them, and I thought that would be a really good way to get them to look more cohesive as a set. For the fleur dress, or the fleur blouse in this case, the tie is quite narrow and it's sewn up, you know, like you fold the outsides in and then you fold them in and then you sew along the edge of that. The boxer short ties are turn-out ties, so you sew along one edge and then turn it inside out. Can you hear the birds? Herringulls. I think the way that the fleur shirt tells you to do it, so folding them in and then sewing along the edge rather than turning it inside out, I think they will make a tougher tie, which is going to be important if you're literally using them as a fastening. I feel like I have to prioritise function if I'm going to be using the same ties on both of them. The other thing to decide about the ties is, originally I thought I would do them with the fabric running this way, so horizontal. And that would mean that the pattern, one line in the pattern would be running all the way along the tie. If I do it well, it would look really, really cool and crisp. However, these aren't cut out pattern pieces by the way, these are just offcuts. Another one of the offcuts ran this way with the stripes going straight up and down. And when I folded them over, I thought that really reminds me of, you know, rock that you'd get at the seaside. And I love how seasidey this print is. I'm a big sea fan. Here are like a bunch of shells that I just keep on the side. I think this looks better. I need to cut 4 of these for the shorts, but I think I may as well just cut out all 10 for the whole thing, because why not? I've just got some offcuts here. I'm seeing if it's wide enough for me to cut any out of. I can get a few off of this bit here. I have pre-washed this fabric, but I have not ironed it, because with seersucker, ironing can warp the fabric and then you end up with a different length garment after you've actually washed it. Unironed seersucker gives you a better idea of what you're actually going to be working with. I was using rocks earlier, nature's pattern weight, and then I scratched the table with this chunk of obsidian. So that turned out not to be such a good idea. I just realised I wasn't wearing my rings. Ew. This is the kind of job that would just be easier on a cutting board. 10. I'm going to sew them all according to the Fabric Godmother instructions. To press these bits of fabric into the ties, I'm using the lines on them as guides to help me with the seam allowance. So I'm just folding over the top 3 stripes on either end to begin with. When you're pressing, you want to actually put some force on the iron, actually press it. It's the force as well as the heat that is actually going to get things to stay where they go. And I know I said I wouldn't be ironing seersucker, but I've got to press the ties. So once I've done that, I've ironed out the actual fabric a bit just to get rid of any major creases. And then I'm folding in from either end both sides of the fabric so that they meet in the middle. And at the very ends here, I'm trying to make sure that these corners don't poke out at the end. I'm pressing that down as I go. It's not always meeting perfectly in the middle, as long as it's mostly okay. And then once I've done that, I'm just folding it over and pressing it down along the middle. I've finished all the others. I think they look really, really cool. I think they've come out beautifully, and they remind me of, what's that stripy worm with the long nose? I'm just straight stitching down one side. I think that looks pretty good. I got my laptop out because that's where the instructions are. I didn't print off the instructions separately because they wouldn't be as easy to store, and also my printer's broken. The first step on these is to attach the 2 pieces at the sides, so attach the side seam. It says to leave the bottoms open because there's like a slit at the bottom of the shorts, and then when I put the seam allowance, when I press that out, it will go all the way down and that will hem the slit. I'm going to give a go to folding them twice, doing like a tiny 1/4 of an inch rolled seam. What I need to make sure I do here is not accidentally sew 2 of them the same, because the fabric is reversible. So I need to make sure that they are the opposite of each other, which they're actually not. I need to turn this one inside out. Just popped 2 clips here to remind myself to stop sewing at the notch. I'm just tucking it under, give it a little push. I think this is going to be okay. Top stitching those seams down. And then, as you can see, when I get down to the slit at the bottom of the shorts, I'm just moving to finish those. And they are getting hemmed. That's gone really well from that side. It looks good. It's held down and everything, no loose ends. Looks pretty straight as well. Next step is to attach the tie. 1/2 inch down from the slit, and then 1 inch out on either side. We are sewing them onto the right side. And I'm just going to... That's gone pretty well. Second one's even better. Done it. Next step is to right sides together, sew the inseams. I will finish them with a Hong Kong finish. And then after that, it is doing that magic thing where you pop one leg inside another leg and sew the crotch together. I've pressed this seam open, and the Hong Kong seam finish involves cutting half of the seam allowance, on only one side though. You want to cut the one that is in the direction that you will eventually be pressing the seam in. I want to press my seams to the back in these shorts, and to find the back, I'm going to figure out which one of the 2 bits is bigger. So the back one is always bigger because you have to fit a button there. That would mean that I needed to cut this right hand seam down to 1/4 of an inch. And then once you have done that, you want to come back to your iron and fold the longer seam, so the one that you've left at 1/2 inch, over that 1/4 of an inch and press it down. Back to the machine, stitch that edge down only on the seam. So you want to be very careful that you don't accidentally stitch past this stitching. You'll end up with a bump on the other side if you do that. And then finally, just pressing that seam in the direction that you want it to go so that you've got this clean edge. There is a very good YouTube video from Carly B that shows loads of different ways to finish seams. I will link it in the description. And now for the magic bit where you put one leg inside the other and sew them up. This step often bamboozles people, but I've just seen that camera is like really sideways. If you go and grab a pair of shorts or trousers that you already own and stuff one of the legs inside the other and really like straighten out the top and the crotch and get them to lay flat, that made it make sense to me. We want the wrong side. I went on to explain how I would put the pieces of the shorts together if I was doing a French seam, which I'm not. And as a result, what I showed you was actually inside out. Luckily, I realised before I sewed it, but unfortunately it was after I put the camera away. So I'll just quickly explain what I should have said. So the correct arrangement is one leg inside out, one leg the right way round, and you put the right way round leg inside the inside out leg, and then pin the crotch together. Very simply, it is essentially just right sides together, but 3D. Okay, they are clipped. I'm gonna go and do the hem thing. No, do the seam thing. Good, happy new day. I had to stop sewing yesterday because I actually felt really ill. I ate hash browns and lasagna separately, like not together. And then much later on in the evening, once I was feeling a bit better, I cut out the pattern pieces for the top because I just thought I'm not gonna get all of the stuff that I need to get done still done tomorrow. Also, don't you guys think this looks like Mordecai from the regular show? Shorts. Lemsip. It's a disgusting hot drink that you have when you're ill. Instructions. Next step is to do the waistband. The pattern wants a 4 centimetre, 1.5 inch piece of elastic, which is like this bad boy. I do not want to wear that around my waist any time of the day, let alone in pyjamas. No, I hate it. Sorry. What I think I'm going to do is do a waistband with that's the same width as what the pattern wants the waistband to be, but that has multiple channels in it of smaller elastic, which is far more comfortable. I've got a few different widths here. I think the one I'm going to use is the one that's just over 1 centimetre. I'm really regretting not printing these off. Adobe is just being frustrating. You just go into a program and it's like, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? No, leave me alone. Fold down the top raw edge by 1/2 inch towards the wrong side of the fabric and press in place. Good morning, iron. How are you? Did you sleep well? Fold again by another 1¼ inch, 4.5 centimetres. Edge stitch along the bottom folded edge. 1 3/4 inches, 1 3/4 inches. Left like a 7 centimetre gap at the back to put the elastic through. I'm gonna do the same again, but around the middle of the waistband. I probably should, and I will, press the waistband in half so that I've got a good guide for where the halfway mark is. Sleepy dog. I've pressed it in half. Now there's this handy dandy line that I can follow. I'd better actually cut some elastic to fit my waist. I'm gonna cut 2 pieces. Pop the elastic on the pin. I feel like it's not a revelation to say that the word pajamas came from India. It's from the Urdu language. The pa means leg and the jama means clothing. That is according to Google and Oxford Languages. The OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, defines these trousers as loose trousers, usually of silk or cotton, tied around the waist and worn by both sexes in some Asian and Middle Eastern countries. Pyjamas made their way into England via colonial trade routes around the 1870s, or at least they became more popular amongst people that were wearing popular fashion around the 1870s. During this time, it was only men, blokes, wearing pyjamas. By the early 20th century, women did start wearing pyjamas as well. The article with the BBC is a really tiny chit-chat interview with a researcher called Lucy Whitmore. She explained that during the First World War, when people were having to rush out their homes in the middle of the night because of air raids, they didn't want to be wearing just night dresses. And during this time, it was actually conventional for men and women to wear night dresses. Some men wore pyjamas, maybe if they were a bit wealthier, but it wasn't super conventional, and it definitely wasn't conventional for women to wear pyjamas. By 1918, a third of women were wearing pyjamas to bed. As a result of that, and as a result of general wartime changes in gender norms anyway, in the 1920s, Coco Chanel starts designing really androgynous pyjamas. These become a completely acceptable and valid thing for women to wear. I'm gonna close the elastic, and I've just popped a bit of tracing paper underneath because the elastic sometimes just gets eaten by the bobbin mouth. Just gonna close up that gap. Oh. So the last step is just to hem the bottoms. I'll just quickly do that and then we can move on to the top. First step on the Fleur shirt is to stay stitch the neckline and the armholes. These look to be some really big armholes and I am concerned about that. It wants me to sew the dart. I've got the dart point marked on both front pieces. I need to fold those together and then have them meet at the dart point, which is over here, and then sew along that. What I'm going to do is press it. That'll help me sew the correct line on the dart. I don't really want to draw on the fabric. I know that you can get heat erasable markers. I just don't trust them. Gonna discolour, right? I don't know. Maybe not. Please let me know your experiences with friction markers and heat erasable pens. Press them over. I think I was meant to cut out a placket. I did not. I watched 4 episodes of Veronica Mars. So I've got my notches of where the ties actually need to go now, and I'm just going to baste them on 10mm away from the raw edge. Before basting these on, I'm actually going to just fold over the very edge, the bit that's going along the button placket, to finish that edge, because in a minute I'm going to have to roll it again, and I want it to be nice and clean. Now, because I didn't follow instructions correctly, I finished both ends of the ties, which I wasn't supposed to do, because now there's going to be a lot of bulk if I follow the instructions and fold them over as I was supposed to. What I think I'm going to do is finish the front edges and then attach these on afterwards. Following this section, I had an absolute disaster. My microphone stopped recording any audio at all until I'm on the final step. I made the button placket, talked a bunch more about pyjamas. Look how animated I am. Full range of emotions. I'll add that info into my next pyjamas video. It will not be long, don't worry. The button placket was meant to go on the front left, but I attached it to the front right. Attaching it was a case of sandwiching the ties between the placket and the front panel and sewing them all together, then pressing the placket out. Then I sewed the shoulder seams together and got an absolutely amazing pattern match on one of the shoulders. Best pattern match of my life. Next was the bias binding around the neck and the armholes. I did the neck binding first and it didn't go well, to be honest. I did the arms in the reverse way to how the pattern said, because the insides came out looking so much better than the outside. I need to watch a lot of YouTube tutorials for bias neck and armhole binding. I would recommend watching those videos instead of this one if you want help getting your bias binding to come out good, so I won't go into too much detail on how I did it in a voiceover. Bias binding is cut out diagonally on the fabric. Strips cut on the bias have more stretch than strips cut out along straight lines, and this makes them easier to bend around curves like arm and neck holes. Next, I sewed up the side seams and bias bound the armholes. One of the reasons that I chose this top is because I'm thinking about making the dress version for my friend's wedding that's coming up, and this was sort of like a trial run. I do think that I will make that dress. I'll make a video about that, and in that one I will go through the construction more thoroughly. This top was surprisingly easy and quick to put together, bias binding aside, so you didn't really miss that much. I'm on the final step. which is the peplum. So I need to sew all of the peplum pieces together, and I need to make sure actually that where I sewed the placket on the wrong side, that won't affect which way I then need to put the peplum on, and it will, because it's increased the width of that side of the top. One of these is longer, one of the two front pieces, and that's the side that needs to go on the side with the placket on it. Luckily, this fabric is reversible, so all will be well. I'm gonna sew these together. And my audio cut out again. I wish I knew what had happened here, but I'm thinking I might need to replace my microphone. I finished the peplum joins with a Hong Kong finish, hemmed it by 1 inch, and gathered it using a hand gathering stitch. I find a hand gather is a lot more versatile and reliable for me personally than one done on a machine, though a machine might be more even. My general reflections before the reveal are as follows. I need to size up next time. There are 2 options for how much room you need in the chest on this shirt, in the pattern, and I might have gone for the one that was too small. I am planning to make another one of these shirts almost immediately, in the same fabric but with the long sleeves, and I'll let you know what size changes I made and how they went, because I will definitely size up in some way with that shirt. Overall, I think the top looks great, and if I had remembered to put interfacing in the placket, I'm sure there would be plenty of coverage. All in all, both these items were a delight to make, and with some improvement on my bias binding, I will be making this set in many different materials for a long time. So finally, here is the finished pyjama set worn all together. I couldn't prance too much today because my hips were incredibly painful and kept refusing to do their job, so I've gone mostly for seated poses, demonstrating various things you might do in pyjamas. Being ill, watching Veronica Mars, eating a hot bowl of vegetable soup. You may be thinking, she's hemmed that peplum backwards. And you would be right, good spot. Luckily, it was a pretty clean hem, so it doesn't look awful. The shorts in particular were incredibly comfortable. It's been a few days since I made these, and I've worn the shorts every day. The slit gives you so much room for movement, it barely feels like you're wearing anything at all with the seersucker, and I just love them, they're amazing. I'm really happy with how these turned out, and I hope that you like how they look too. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and as always, here are some awkward clips of me trying to get a thumbnail picture for your enjoyment. In the next video, I'm going to be recovering a dirty, stinky, disgusting dress form, so feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see that.